Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode. We've made it to Friday. I've got my Friday shirt on. I've got my Friday smoothie, which isn't any different to any other smoothie day. It's a lovely, delicious combination. Frozen berries, banana, oats and milk today. But today we're talking about the differences between on the water speeds versus on the rowing machine speeds. But that will be later on, so head around here to that time for that chat if you want to listen to that. But first things first, before that, we're going to head on to the water this morning. A little bit windy, but luckily we have the sheltered Avon to row on. So yes, it might be windy up here overlooking Bath, but down on the Avon with all the trees around it's going to be, or fingers crossed, don't think the wind's in that one direction that makes it rough, is going to be flat. We have some glass to disturb, or at least try to disturb as little as possible. So welcome to Friday. Let's get going. Let's have a great day, and I'll see you on the water. Oh yeah! And we have made it into the boathouse, as we always do after a session. And what else do we have to do after the session? I hear you say we have to fuel up, because remember, food is fuel. Little short review of that session. Good, I would say. The bottom level is increasing, if that makes sense, and the top level is increasing. So the band of quality of sessions is going up, which is what I would expect with the practice I'm doing, and with obviously the support of the YAM squad, and trying to get as many quality miles in as possible. So not too many fully balanced strokes this morning, but just trying to enjoy the process, enjoy the improvement, and keep on keeping on, if that makes sense. And just enjoying being out there in the water, because I know some of you aren't able to get out on the water. So hopefully me being out in the water helps fulfill just that little bit of a on the water hole in your heart for now, until you can get back on the water. But now, going to get some food, because food is fuel, and then talk a little bit about the splits that I saw that session and how they compare to my erg performances, and how you can compare and cannot compare water and erg times. So let's get to it. And we have made it back to the house for our little bit of a chat about splits on the water versus splits on the rowing machine. I'm going to use specifically the Concept 2 because that's what I am used to. Welcome to the video if you've skipped from the start to here. So let's get into it. So you can have speeds no matter where you are, whether it's on the water, on the road, on the erg, on a stationary bike, whatever it is. And people love to compare those splits. And today I'm going to be talking about sort of my splits, how they compare to each other, and maybe they're similar to yours. Let me know in the comments below if they are. And also the negatives and positives of comparing those splits, whether they're with mine, with someone else's, or with yourselves, whether it's, say, like I said, the example being used, rowing machine splits versus on the water splits. So today my on the water splits sort of varied from going one way, about 220, 225, going the other way, 210, 215. And so that's sort of the difference in the stream. So I'm on a river, so it flows one way. So one way you're going to be slower than the other if there's any flow at all. Then on the rowing machine, so this is for UT2 splits, UT2 speeds. On the rowing machine, my UT2 right now is between, say, 49 and 52, depending on sort of the temperature, my fatigue levels, how I'm feeling that day, my fueling, everything. So it's around 50-ish. So that's a difference of roughly, say, 30 splits, 25 to 30 splits. And some people like to say you should have a difference of 40. Some people say 20, some people say 30. But I really have a bit of a difficulty comparing on the water splits to on the rowing machine splits. On the erg, you have very specific, there's no external factors that affect the rowing machine like water, wind, balance, all that stuff. The erg is the erg, and it's just if you apply the same force to the erg every single time, that will generate pretty much the same split. If you do that on in a single on a body of water, it won't necessarily produce the same speed because you may be on a river, which will have different flow rates. Like I said, depending on which way you're going, it might be faster or slower. So then it becomes difficult to compare. Which way do you compare? Do you do the average? Then it can depend on the actual river itself. Is it bigger, smaller? Is it consistently flowing one way? Is there parts of the river where the wind comes in and other parts where it's really shielded and you can go faster or go slower? And so the on the water splits are so variable that I think it can be quite difficult to compare both of them to each other. Yes, you might be able to compare it if, so for example, for me, the weather over the past few weeks has been pretty consistent. Yes, heat-wise, it's been up and down a little bit, but rain-wise, it's not been too much. So the water stream has been not too variable. So the splits going both ways are reasonably consistent. And then on the erg, again, very easily producible results at the same level. So for me, I might be able to compare those kind of to each other. But for me to say, well, this is my split on the water, say I'll go to 20 for UT2, that doesn't mean you should go to 20 for UT2. You might be able to go to 10, you might have to go to 30. It's the same thing with on the erg. Just because I might be able to do 150 doesn't mean you should be doing 150 for your steady state on the water. Partly because we're different people, we have different fitness levels, our zones are in the different positions, so we should be training to our strengths and our weaknesses. And the other part, we're probably going to be rowing on different bodies of water. Even if our fitnesses were exactly the same, we can't really say, okay, let's go 220. Say you're in America and I'm here, I'm rowing on the Avon down the road, and you say you're rowing on the Charles and it's a very streamy day, you might be able to paddle at say 150 going one way and 250 going the other, but here on the Avon it's very consistent, or relatively consistent. It's quite difficult to compare our two splits. And then of course, if you do have a very, very consistent body of water, maybe a lake that is very shielded, that doesn't have a lot of chop on it, that doesn't have a lot of wind affecting it, that there's not too big so that there can be sort of movements in the water that can affect your speed, and it can be very calm. Maybe you only row on it at 5 o'clock in the morning where the wind has died down all the time and it's very consistent. So maybe then you can compare very reliably on the water versus erg scores. But otherwise, if your body of water isn't very consistent, if it's a river essentially, and if it's not, even then it's quite difficult. But if it's a river, it's very difficult to say, okay, well, your UT2 is 205, you should be paddling around on the water at say 235. It's quite difficult to sort of go in between either and or, for many different reasons like I've already talked about. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of light into what I'm seeing on my stroke coach as well. So today, especially towards the end of the session, I was seeing sort of low 2s, 205s-ish, and then through the session, like I said, 220-ish going one way and 215s going the other way. And the splits themselves really, realistically, don't matter currently. I'm not really looking at speeds. I'm looking at the technique and how those speeds are produced. And what I can use the speeds for themselves is, okay, if I am more relaxed, will the speed change? If I try harder, will the speed slow down or speed up? If I clip the water one way, will it slow down? If I do something right or wrong, will it affect the speed in a positive or negative manner? So that's kind of what I'm using the speed for now, rather than saying I need to go a certain split. And that's what I think a lot of you, a lot of the YAM squad, a lot of people training should really look at their speeds for training. Because in racing, yes, the times matter and you can look at your competitors and see how fast they're going, but in training, the splits are an outcome of what you're doing, whether it's on the rowing machine or the water. Hopefully that makes sense. And I've talked about, again, about being ego-centered training can be quite negative, because you end up, oh, I need to see this split, and you end up throwing all sort of training intensity values out the window and end up under or overcooking. But that's for a whole nother video. I think I'll talk about that, about training zones on the water versus on a rowing machine. But that's for future YAM Squad to look forward to. And as always, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button. And congratulations for making it through Friday. And hopefully you've had a Friday shirt on this week. Maybe next week we can start with the Friday shirt being more of a thing. And I'll see you in the next episode. Oh yeah.